Hello, everyone. Dr. Ames here. This time I'd like to talk to you about public relations, influencer marketing, and corporate advertising. Here's the learning objectives for this time. I'll talk about the role of public relations as part of your overall strategy, talk about the tools that we use in public relations, a couple of the basic strategies and so forth that we could choose, and some of the tactics that are used in influencer marketing programs and so forth, and then the applications and objectives of corporate advertising. Let me skip over this part. It's just an overall detail of how all these concepts fit together. Okay, first let's talk about public relations in general. Public relations is simply a practice, a set of activities that we would choose to do as an organization, generally to create some goodwill for ourselves. And we want to create that goodwill in the minds of all the people that we serve, our constituents. Well, today, certainly digital media really allows us to engage and pull in those consumers who fit into our consumer segment. So digital media allows us to monitor if we generated any buzz about our particular brand and so forth. And what is buzz really? It's the number of mentions you get online. It's the things people are talking about, the things that go viral and so forth, things that get a lot of likes in various different platforms and so forth. Well, digital media is the type of thing that you can measure and you can keep track of it on the different platforms. And so you monitor that brand buzz and find out how well you're doing. They allow you to really find out what consumers are thinking on the day-to-day basis about your brand or your products within the brand and so forth. When things go wrong, digital media allows us to respond quickly and engage with consumers to do damage control, certainly. And we have to learn that public relations is that part of what we do that helps us handle bad news. It helps us determine what to release to the public and what not to, what to release internally and what not to, and so forth. And so no company is really immune to bad publicity, but what we're always seeking for certainly is good publicity. And then the nice thing about public relations is it's generally free. So when you put out press releases and those sorts of things, if they were picked up by any particular media or advertising tool, then it's all to your benefit because it hasn't cost you anything and you may be able to generate some goodwill. So public relations really has changed over time. It is very much part of the investment picture of the marketing budget for any corporation that does a serious amount of advertising or any company. As it says here, firms that are pulling in about $1 billion of revenues a year typically are spending more than $500,000 per year and even more in various public relations activities. So although public relations in general, things like press releases and so forth are free, the effort and time and energy you put into doing those things certainly costs you resources, and so they're not free in that sense. Public relations embraces all sorts of tools, particularly digital tools, blogs, for instance, which have somewhat faded in their influence and so forth in recent times, but other things like Snapchat and Instagram, as you see here, Pinterest, TikTok, Facebook, certainly YouTube, Twitter, all of these places. These are places where messages can go out and do nothing other than build your brand awareness and hopefully some goodwill. So what we have is a variety of tools and channels offering us a way to tell our story, to shape the message that we want out there, to shape our image in the minds of consumers. And that's really what marketing is for. We could do it word of mouth. We could do it electronic word of mouth. Today, that is quite popular because most of us as consumers are reading reviews and things other consumers have said about a product or service and so forth. Everything from the service and the food quality in a restaurant to the service and quality of a given product on an online retailer's website. So, but word of mouth does work. It just depends on your context. And certainly public relations is used more than ever for damage control when things do go wrong. So here are the objectives for public relations in general. Certainly, like I've said, promoting goodwill is a big part of it. But you can also use it to introduce a new product or a service for the first time, and you might be able to do that with a press release or something like that. It helps you when you're thinking in terms of what do I do to influence people to get a little bit better, maybe at communicating internally as well. It is a mechanism to combat and avoid negative publicity, which sometimes can be out there. Maybe you're just responding to negative publicity about your industry, but it's not you in particular. But as a member of the industry, you feel that maybe some of that negativity is rubbing off on you. Well, you can counteract that with public relations by trying to build goodwill yourself and talk about all the good things and wonderful things that you may have done as a corporation. So one of the objectives might be to influence people at a legislative level. That could be local, that could be federal government or state or anything in between. So lobbying would certainly be an objective depending on your status and so forth, your size. And so forth. So you can see that public relations really is a whole package of tools and things that we want to accomplish and the means to do it. Here's an example. And what we're talking here, IBP simply means, as I've discussed in the past, integrated brand promotion. That's where we are in the marketing world right now. Here's a form of public relations called a public service announcement. This one happened to come from the Ad Council, and their theme really, a very short and direct message: love has no labels. And so what they're doing is they're promoting inclusion and diversity. This got tens of millions of views on YouTube, and it was the first public service announcement ever to win an Emmy Award for its production values and so forth. So this is actually a video, and the other examples that I will show you are still shots or frames from various videos that happen to be up on YouTube. And so I thought I would use these as examples to show you some of the concepts I'm talking about, some of the tools. Here's another one, another public service announcement, integrated brand promotion in action. Now here's one about Gatorade. Now think about it. This was not originally conceived as a marketing promotion where, you know, a winning coach gets a bucket of ice cold Gatorade dumped on them after a prestigious win of some type. It just, something had happened. And then it started happening with regularity as people tend to seize on things that are entertaining and that they enjoy. And so for Gatorade, obviously this is a made and tailor-made and given to you promotional opportunity. And so Gatorade engages sports fans, and they do it in particular during the Super Bowl, of course, and it's become somewhat of a ritual in the NFL and so forth. And so what do they do with this? They put these various images out on the digital media I've been talking about, in this case, Snapchat and so forth. And it really brings an awareness of the brand. It builds goodwill. It happens to be something that's positive and fun versus having any negativity. So in the sense of a public service announcement, Gatorade is letting you know that they're still around and they're still part of our ritual. There are all sorts of these tools. The public service announcement, of course, there was an example. And I've mentioned press releases. Press releases are really vital to, in particular, to that community that you're trying to build locally, if that's your context of your business. But press releases are vital to building your image, to keeping the public updated on new developments within your company, as well as new products and services. Press releases are vital to event marketing and doing sponsorships and so forth. And remember, press releases aren't something you pay for. They're something you submit to an advertising channel or medium of some type in the hopes that they will find time and be generous enough to actually publish it for you in some way. So here you are trying to create that synergy with social media. You would put press releases certainly on your Facebook page. You would put it on your corporate page as well. You would release it to the local radio station and TV stations. You would release it to the local newspapers and those sorts of things. And those just make sense. And sometimes you're going to hit it big and they're going to have time and they are looking for content themselves. And you'll get some free publicity to build your brand and so forth. So here's another example of integrated brand promotion with GE tweeting out a press release. So they're using Twitter, a social media platform, and they're releasing information on this new, very high-tech turbine. Now, certainly, the general consumer public, the household consumers, our largest heterogeneous group of marketing consumers that we often start with when we're trying to segment our markets, they're not interested, obviously, in a product like this. But what it does is tweak our awareness as consumers that GE is still around, that they are a high-tech company. It reminds us in subtle ways of a complex product like this, that they've invented things, they've made products that affect our lives and so forth. And so this is just more publicity to build brand awareness and so forth. So we have a variety of other tools as well. You could, if you have a relationship with a journalist, or you can create one with a local newspaper. It certainly takes no more time than just contacting them, maybe by email, or sending an email to the editor and saying, would you be interested in doing a feature on us? We're doing this. And they'll either be interested or they won't. But they might be able to be looking for content, and they might be able to provide an exclusive look at you and your operations that is not going to happen anywhere else. Company newsletters and e-newsletters, of course, the e-newsletters would go out to probably all staff and the workforce in general, but an e-newsletter might also go out to your clients and your target segment and so forth to keep them informed. So sometimes it's going to be an in-house publication, but it doesn't always have to be. An e-newsletter could certainly be disseminated externally. You could do interviews. You could have your company spokesperson go out and do a press conference or an interview on local television for a 30-second segment or something like that. You would use your public relation tools of a press conference or even a press release. If there's a crisis that you're managing, something that has happened that requires a significant announcement from you. You use your public relation tools when you are sponsoring events. Put out those press releases and so forth. Put it all up on your social media and find ways to get it out there with the least expense. Publicity in general is free media exposure, and you certainly want it to be on the positive side of your activities and brands. It adds credibility and authenticity to your company. It builds goodwill over time. And so this is where you want to be. Here, what we've got is a very busy graphic, I admit, but this is really about all the many ways that a corporation could do social responsibility. And social responsibility that corporations perform are generally in response to some challenge in society that's been brought to their attention by customer comments or surveys or interviews, or they're catching it on the news, or it's the thing everybody is talking about. And the corporation, the top leaders at some point get together and say, we obviously have to respond in some way to what's going on in society. And here's what we're seeing out there. And here's areas where we could do something for our local community or for society at large. And certainly you have an agenda and you're doing this for a reason. You want good publicity. You want people to know how great and beneficial you are besides the things that you make and do for people. So these particular goals were established by the United Nations here. But when you really start looking at them, many of these are about health. They're about consumption, things like that. So these are really areas where corporations could find meaningful things to do. And then when you do something meaningful that falls into that category of social responsibility, you have to tell people about it. And so then your public relation tools kick in and you should get some credit for the things that you've done. So there are two basic strategies, of course, like there is in most business situations. You're either proactive or you're reactive. It's no different than your regular business strategy. Your public relations, though, should be a solid part of your marketing promotional overall strategy. Your integrated brand promotion should have a solid public relations component to it. And so it's got to be proactive. It's got to be thinking ahead, planning, looking to publicize the company, its brand, and obtaining goodwill over time. The reactive strategy simply doesn't work. It's for the companies and corporations that aren't leading in their market, that aren't generating the best practices, that aren't the leaders. Reactive strategies are not going to be the most successful strategies in the business world by any means. You're always reacting to things, just like the strategy says. And you're always on the defense. You're playing catch up all the time. That is not the way to go. The heart of business and certainly the heart of marketing efforts requires a lot of advanced planning, thoughtful planning, taking into account reasonable things and feasible things. Here's another example of public relations. In this case, this is a reactive public relations. This came from Pepsi. Now, this is sort of complicated, and I don't know all the background on this particular incident, but it is something that happened out in public involving spectators, policemen, a protest, that sort of situation. And Pepsi jumps in right after this was on the news and had an ad where a protester went over and as a gesture of I'm assuming this meant goodwill and so forth, giving a Pepsi to a police officer. There was a lot of reaction to this ad. It was sort of a reactive stance to something that had happened. And they may have chosen more wisely to stay out of it. They didn't have to enter into a political situation with an ad because it puts them in the position of taking sides. And in any political situation, it's quite often polarized. And the last thing you would want to do is put your product in a situation where maybe some of your target segment is polarized and they're on the other side of that. And so reactive public relations require you to be a little more thoughtful. If you were proactive, you would have spent a little bit more time thinking about this and said, oh, no, that's a political situation. There are other ways that we can promote our brand. So we want to be proactive with our public relations. Do an audit. An audit is simply a look at yourself internally in some area. It's not necessarily an accounting audit. So you would identify those characteristics or aspects of your activities that are positive and noteworthy. Well, if you do that, then maybe you've discovered or uncovered something you just hadn't thought of that might be suitable for a press release. A summary of something that you've done over time to bring your name back into focus for people who haven't heard it for a while. Even if it's nothing extremely noteworthy, if it's newsworthy in some minor sense, you never know when the newspaper or the local TV station might mention it. So it is much smarter to be proactive, develop a plan for your public relations, just like you do all your other advertising tools. You'll set your objectives, you'll develop activities related to those objectives to get the things accomplished. And you'll communicate about it to the rest of society, and particularly local society and wherever your business context operates. So there again, you're using public relations tools. You can do things like a situation analysis. You can examine your objectives and decide, is the rationale sound? Is it economically feasible? Can we pull it off? How will we deliver the message? The communication vehicles are what media channels are we going to use? And then, of course, what's the message? One message, simple and direct, repeated on many different platforms, is the way to go. So there's some steps, of course. You do the audit. It's based on your current operations. You want the most up-to-date data and so forth. And you certainly don't want to skip over things that are unpleasant. Treat it like a SWOT analysis. Look and see where you're strong, but also because you can talk about those things, but find out where you're weak so you can start working on those things to mitigate them, alleviate them in some way. Finally, as we talk about public relations, let's acknowledge that it has changed considerably over time. It's much more broader today. It's much more integrated into the overall integrated brand promotion than ever before. Before, it was simply a tool that was mainly thought of in terms of the occasional press release, the occasional interview, and so forth. And that's about it. But today it has a much stronger purpose, damage control, like I've mentioned, and so forth. And it's really another way for your top leadership to start thinking proactively and to start thinking in broader terms about all the many aspects of how you can achieve success. So you have to recognize that these contribute to the overall effort of success. and so forth. They're part of your overall brand communication strategy. Now let's switch a little bit and talk about influencer marketing. Now, who are influencers? Well, they're really celebrities, they're experts, they're anyone that in general the public sees as having an opinion that matters. And that's a really broad definition. So it could be a star athlete that a lot of people like. It could be a financial expert that's on television all the time, on various news channels, and gets some recognition. It could be anybody. It could be your local pastor. It could be your professor. So influencers generally, though, are celebrity types, people that have broader recognition. And influencer marketing has grown and changed, just like public relations has over time. And so what it is, it's using marketing techniques that feature a variety of influencers, either in a role as testimonial givers, they've used the product or service and they're telling you how great it is, or as a spokesperson for products and services, not necessarily admitting to whether or not they use them, but being the spokesperson, using their celebrity status, their influencer status indeed, to persuade people. So sometimes these programs are used to reach professionals. They might require a real long-term sort of commitment. These are contractual when you sign someone generally to represent your company and so forth. And then you really have to be very transparent about it also. But the FTC is going to look at this like they do many things. And it's going to be whether an influencer is delivering your message or whether just a normal company spokesperson or an animated character, whatever it is. When the FCC looks at these things, they're looking for, have you misrepresented? Have you done any of the things that violate the rules of the road here, so to speak? And so influencers definitely, if you have the budget for it, certainly too, can be a big part of your influencer marketing. But often your influencer marketing is directed at professionals, like I've said. So here's an example, integrated brand promotion example of influencer marketing directed very specifically at therapists. And so the advertiser is Comfort, Select Comfort, the mattress maker. And so they are aiming a marketing promotion at therapists specifically. And so they are going to send them a DVD and a brochure, and it's going to talk about the product benefits, and it's going to get a lot of information and demographics and statistics and so forth. And so they've even set it up where they've sent in a proxy prescription pad where the therapist could even write out a prescription and give it to a consumer that your back problems are so bad that I recommend you use a Select Comfort mattress. So influencer campaigns often have the celebrity presence. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're just directed at therapists. And so the influencer part is the brand name itself, the strength of the company, and the overall picture and reaction that consumers have to that company. We also have peer-to-peer influencing. This is where really we're relying on people to talk to each other. Families talk to each other about the purchase they make, friends talk to each other, and so forth. Influencer programs, quite often they give people things to talk about. One type is word of mouth, like I've mentioned before. You encourage people to talk about something, particularly if the product or service is fun in any way at all or entertaining. You want to create some buzz marketing if possible. I talked about buzz earlier, where you measure the reaction out there in society, the mentions of your name and so forth. Are people saying positive things? Are they saying lots of things? That's really what you want. You want your brands and so forth to be the source of household conversation in the best of idealistic worlds. So if something goes viral and it gets seen by tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people, as a marketer, that's tremendous success. You reached a huge amount of potential consumers and potential new customers. And some of them may fall into your target segment you've already identified. And so sometimes this sort of peer-to-peer, word of mouth, e-mouth, and so forth does bring in meaningful results. And it allows you to connect with people and identify consumers that maybe you'd never have before. That is some of the power of social media platforms today in all of these types of advertising and promotion. So 5 keys to generate buzz. We want people talking. That's buzz. Well, people do talk to each other about brands. So give them something to talk about. Give them a cool story. Give them something new product that does something very neat that hasn't been done just yet. People talk about those sorts of things. They ought to be able to understand it and relate to it. It ought to be portable. In other words, the talk about it ought to be able to go onto Facebook, but it ought to be able to be tweeted about, and it ought to be able to have a picture on it on Snapchat and all of those sorts of things. In other words, it ought to be something that people become interested in, that they notice. And then you track it. You measure the outcomes. Well, how do you do that? Well, you look at your various media platforms. Are we getting mentions? Is something gone viral? How many likes did it get? You're starting to get an idea. And then certainly your advertising on various social media platforms are going to be able to give you analysis. How many clicks? How long did people look at your message? Did anybody see your display ad, your print ads and so forth that follow people around on the various platforms? Here's another example, this one. Company called Focal Point. So they're providing a graphic service here. They can make really nice graphics, presentations. And so this could be used for special event, letting people know about something. So you're going to give out samples, you're going to have a special event, invitations, where, when, what. This could appear on different social media and digital platforms. There's a video again about this on YouTube, and that's what the still is from. But this is an influencer strategy. In this case, it's not always the celebrity, it's the company itself and their strong brand reputation. Here's another one with Dove, a very well-known company. So in this particular example, if for whatever reason it went viral, Dove Real Beauty Sketches, you're more beautiful than you think, was the message. And if I remember seeing this one correctly, the artist is sitting there creating a variety of sketches. But of course, in the ad, they're moving quite quickly and you get to see them. And people just really were enraptured by that. And it got a lot of views and it got reposted and reposted. And you can see here, nearly 70 million views. Well, for a product like Dove Real Beauty Soap, that's an incredible, successful promotion. Unexpected and how successful. But every once in a while, you can't always predict what will go viral and what won't. Now, when it comes to corporate advertising, this is simply advertising, promotions in general, to raise brand awareness about your company, your products or services, and obviously to put it in a positive light of some type. So build the image of the firm, and as well, boost the morale of employees. High profile companies with good positive reputations attract the best talent. They allow you to communicate your message, your views on something, if that is your message. It helps establish your position in regards to your competitors. And so corporate advertising is another tool like public relations, like influencer marketing, that should be part of your overall integrated brand promotion. Here's an example. The NSF Railway, corporate image. They're not trying to sell a railroad card to any consumer. They're not trying to sell a business product necessarily to any business. What they're doing is saying, here we are, we've been around for a long time. We're a railway that connects us. We're the engine that connects us. So it's meant to build awareness. And you never know when a business buyer may see this YouTube video and be the one that actually solicits bids for their company on what railroad line you're going to use to carry what cargo where. So, but that's not the main thrust of it. It's really to raise awareness and to build goodwill. So, hey, we're still out here, or maybe you didn't know we were out here. We've been around for 100 years. Here's another one from Apple. Of course, Apple, much bigger budget than many companies. When you look at this, what you're seeing is 3 buildings. And you're seeing their advertising campaign on the fronts of all 3 of those buildings. It's really impressive. Corporate image. It's so impressive that people know it's Apple. It's right there in the center. Think different is the message. And really, they're showing you different people, different accomplishments, and they're trying to link themselves to uniqueness, individuality, creativity, innovation. This is the message. It's corporate advertising meant to raise their brand awareness and goodwill in general. So we have some different types of this corporate advertising. Besides just the general cause of trying to enhance your image, advocacy. Maybe you want to take a position on social or political issue of some type. A positive issue, a positive stance in some way. And you realize that you are influencing public opinion when you do that. You are advocating. So advocacy advertising. Say that you, as a corporation, have identified hunger in the community as a local problem. So you release a press release that you're going to do this about that problem. You're going to contribute this effort to the problem. And you take a public stance that you would like to help and do your part to end hunger. That's advocacy advertising. Cause related, similar. You're affiliating yourself with a social, societal cause related marketing. Maybe you are a company that in some way produces energy, and energy companies are under a lot of pressure because of the needs of to change because of climate change. So in that position, you could take a stance that we support doing whatever we can to mediate climate change. And here's the things that our company is doing. Or it could be something that's just totally positive. Here's what we're doing to save the ocean. Green marketing. Green marketing is probably where a lot of our corporate advertising came from, at least in the last 20 years or so. We started to notice in the social cultural sphere out there that people are talking about corporations getting very rich and that maybe they ought to give something back to their local communities, if nothing else. And so green marketing in particular was focused on maybe corporations ought to do something to protect the environment. And so they release information. Our products don't harm the environment, or here's what we're doing to reduce waste that's put into the environment, or chemicals, or whatever it is. So green marketing is very much about the environment, but it's also part of the bigger type of social responsibility overall. Here's something from Starbucks, a very busy sort of advertisement here, but it is about green marketing. This particular ad and this particular video talked about the efforts that Starbucks is making to protect the coffee grower as an individual, small farmer, maybe in an underdeveloped market system, how they're not exploiting them, how they're protecting them and helping them and so forth, how they're doing their contributions to renewable sorts of resources and so forth. In other words, they're working with the industry. They're trying to show you that we don't exploit, that we care about the environment, we care about the people that are involved in all of this, and so forth. So that's green marketing. It's also social responsibility. Here's Mattel, another integrated brand promotion. They used a variety of social media platforms for this. The YouTube video was all over the place. These are short generally. This particular one, you might be able to see it here, is only 30 seconds. This is very much in the social cultural sphere of dimension of business activity. Here's Mattel using a short video about dads who play with Barbies with their daughters It got a lot of content, reshares, and so forth. It was quite successful. And it just shows that dads can do the things, whether they have females or males as offspring and all of that, and that how Mattel is the company that is teaching dads to be better dads and to get along better with their daughters or whatever it might be in this case. Here's a really interesting from a corporation named LK. Now, LK is the maker of basically plumbing supplies. If you look closely at this, it looks like a plant. It's very unique. It's creative advertising, certainly. These are sinks. And so these are sinks. LK makes sinks. They're trying to be creative, innovative. Once you realize and you look at it for a moment and you realize what the product is, I think it's easy to appreciate the creativity that went into it. It got your attention. It's not quite a plant with flowers. It's a plant with sinks on it and so forth. And so this is a form of corporate advertising, again, that really is a great example of the best of corporate advertising because it's interesting, get people talking about it possibly, at least maybe to a minor extent. Okay, folks, that's all I want to talk about this time. I'll talk to you again soon.